Hey, Canucks fans, I am back with my next installment of my Zoom interview chats. And this one, I say this every time, but this one I am really excited about because although I've had family members on here before, none of them were my actual brother. So I'm pleased to welcome my younger brother, but he might say better looking brother, Jason Imoo. Jason, welcome. I'll call you Jay because that's what I call you. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks, Clay.
So
Honestly, when you asked me to be on it, I was actually honored because even though we talk Canucks all the time, I know that you've had like the biggest of heavyweights in the local and even national media. So I appreciate the chance to come here and talk some Canucks.
Well, it's good. I've been telling all my friends that my brother Jay has got a lot to say at Ryan, so we'll see what happens. But before we get into your Canucks takes, let's talk about your family right now. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do for a living.
Sure. So I live in Surrey. I've been here for out in Surrey for about 10 years now, but born and raised in Richmond, of course, very much like you. So I have a fairly large family. I have 5 kids. So the kids are aged 5 through 13, 4 boys, 1 girl. Couple of diehard Canucks fans in there as well, obviously.
Wow. So it sounds very similar to our family.
Very much so, yeah. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And, we can get into some of the stories about us growing up and the effect that Dad had on our Canucks fandom and our love for the team. But, I see it in your boys and in my kids, obviously, as well. So passing it on through the generations. So, yeah, vocationally, I work at TELUS. So I'm a director within human resources at TELUS. But my passions are Canucks, obviously, and music production, which we can also talk a little bit about.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about that for sure. We're going to talk about growing up. We're going to talk about the current Canucks and in telling everyone how creative you are and how, how talented you are. Everyone can already see how much nicer your setup is than mine. You have good lighting, like not some fake ring light. You have an actual microphone. It looks good.
Yeah,
so you're in the house.
I'm in the music studio, so I'm downstairs in the studio, where you've spent some time. We've done a little bit of work with Marie and others. But yeah, the music production is a big passion of mine. I did it semi-vocationally for around 5 years, producing music for some local artists. We had dreams of making it big. Didn't happen. It's all good, but still do the music production. Family. Yeah, so still doing the music production as a passion, more of a side thing now.
Awesome. And we'll get to, that's where we recorded 53 Horvat Magic. That's where we recorded our thank you song to the Sedins, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, so married to Joanna, 5 awesome kids. I'm married to Gail. We have 3 awesome kids. When we get together, it's always awesome. But let's talk about when we were growing up, and in particular, I've talked about Dad a lot on the channel. Our mom Joyce, of course. But let's talk about especially our dad and how he really led us to Canucks fandom.
Yeah, so Dad was a hockey fan as far back as I can remember. I wouldn't say he went out of his way to disciple us in the ways of the Canucks, but ever since we were born, he was always sitting there on that couch with his beer, watching every game that was on TV. And at that time, it's probably only 10, 15 games a year. It's not like now where every minute of every game is televised. But I think that kind of subtly impacted us because I don't think I became a fan until maybe the mid to late 80s, which would have meant I was probably around 10 to 12 years old. So it's not like from 5 years old I was wearing the Canucks pajamas. In fact, we have a picture where I'm wearing Philadelphia Flyers pajamas.
Yeah. What's wrong with you?
And I don't know, maybe part of it was the team in the mid 80s was so bad that I don't know, there wasn't kind of that captivating hook. I would say it was more towards the late 80s. The team had added a few pieces. There were some emerging stars, if you want to call them that. And they didn't turn out to be stars, but guys like Petri Shriko and Tony Tanney and
Patrick Sundstrom.
These are the guys that we grew up watching, and Garth Butcher and Harold Snaps, and the team had a lot of character, but it was I would say it was that series in 1989 against the Flames where We took them to Game 7, overtime. Stan Smeel game on his stick, and then shoots it, fires it top corner, and then of course Vernon whips out the hand, does the old windmill, and like as a kid, that I was heartbroken by that. But that was the first time where I'm like, oh, you know what? There's something here that's pretty cool and worth watching. And I think it's just that, growing up with seeing the team when they were pretty bad, and then, eventually in the early 90s, they drafted Trevor Linden, they brought in Bury, and obviously that run to 94. I think because our fandom was built in kind of the worst of times, it really helps kind of have like a bigger perspective when the Canucks go through these, the peaks and valleys. And, arguably they're in a valley right now and coming out of it. But I think just as a fan, my orientation just tends to be a little bit more on that positive side because we started watching when they sucked. But yeah, Dad would always be up. You've told the stories too, but he'd be lying in the bed listening to Jim Robson and Tom Larscheid, and we would just go up in his bed and just lie next to him. And there was something almost magical about that because, we didn't live in that age where there's that kind of social media and all that kind of pressure that, today's hockey mad environment puts on the team, combined with 24/7 kind of access. But back then it was old school. We're listening to the radio, and as Jim Robson and Tom Larscheid are painting this picture, we have to imagine it, and most of the time, and we have to as a kid, it just kind of takes you to another place when that's the lens that you see the team through. And then after the games, listening to Dan Russell every night from 10 o'clock until midnight. I used to listen to my radio, after the game, and the lights would all be out. I'd almost be like under the covers listening to the radio until that midnight, and Dan Russell signed off, and that's how I grew up.
And you're right, Jay. Anyone our age or around 40 and above will remember those days of the Flying V and the late 80s. Getting into the early 90s, and then the Burys and Lindens, and then moving us through the West Coast Express years all the way into, of course, 2000 and beyond. So no, that was a great walk down memory lane. And why don't you tell everyone how we used to get excited when our friends used to come over and ring on our doorbell and invite us to play hockey, but we realized what the real reason was.
Yeah, so we'd get these kids knocking on our door, ringing our doorbell, and we're thinking we're popular, they want to play. But yeah, they'd actually be asking to play with Dad, because Dad was everyone's favorite neighborhood dad. He was the guy who, every day he'd be out there playing street hockey with us. Sometimes we'd play basketball. He was a terrible basketball player, though. He's the only guy I know, seriously, the only human on earth that I know that could shoot a basketball with absolutely zero spin on the ball. It almost defied physics. Yeah. But yeah, playing hockey, he was the most popular guy on the street. He had a wicked slap shot. Yes. He was also a good goalie. He'd play net for us
with no pads.
He'd wear a cup,
shirt
though.
On.
No shirt. He'd wear a cup though, and I remember that he'd almost take pride in stopping the ball with his cup, and we would just look at him and just make a face. It was. When
you think about it, you'd actually should show more pride if you stop it without a cup. Actually,
true, but and he probably could have gotten away with it because he had already had us, and I don't think they planned on having any more after that. But yeah, but I also remember though, we'd find all his hockey equipment in the basement, and we'd be looking at it. And this is even before we knew what the cup was. You would ask Dad what that cup was for, and he's like, "Yeah, that's a mask." And you're like, "Oh," and you're putting it on your face.
Well, I wasn't going to share that story, but yes, I thought Dad played for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, he had that Canadian jersey.
And I thought that his jock, the cup, was his goalie mask. So
yeah, sorry, was that too much information?
It's okay. The people that watch this, they know I'm pretty much an open book. Yeah, okay. One story I haven't told a lot about with the street hockey is our house where the back part of our wall was all rocks. Any rocks plastered into the wall. So anytime someone would take a hard slap shot, it would actually literally knock a rock off the wall. It would crash to the ground, break into pieces. And we'd have to have an annual plaster the rock party at the end of every summer to replace all the damage. Okay, one last story, and then we'll get into the current Canucks. Why don't you tell everyone how good Dad was at Sega Genesis hockey and our excitement to come home from UBC every day to play?
Yeah, there was excitement every day to come home to play that Genesis. It was me, Clay, and our friend Rich. We'd play against my dad. Shout out to Richard Chen. The excitement was mostly because we know we could beat him every time. He was pretty terrible. So there was a version of the Genesis where it came out and they started to actually, you'd log in with your username and then it would actually track your winning percentage. And, I was proud to say my percentage is a smidge above everyone else, probably around 60 to 65%.
Yeah, you're in the high 60s.
Yeah. And then Clay and Rich would come in like between 55 and 60. And then my dad, he'd be slightly lower
No, a lot lower.
Around 10%. So my dad was around 10-15%. So we would always do like rock scissors paper to see who'd be on his team, and it's kind of that crushing feeling when you realize you had to be partnered with my dad.
And it got so bad where we made a rule where you didn't have to play on Dad's team 3 times in a row. So that was too much of a punishment for anyone. So, well, God rest his soul. We're very grateful for him. I know both of us talk about him a lot as our hero, and we pay tribute to him. So we're thankful to him, as the one who paved the way for a Canucks fandom. So let's talk about that now. That was a really good primer for who you are and growing up. Tell me, Jay, what do you think about what Jim Benning has done so far this offseason?
I think he's worked with the constraints that he's faced with. So early on in the free agency period, obviously losing Toffoli, Markstrom, Tanev, Stetcher, there was a collective angst for sure amongst the fan base, and that's saying it lightly. I don't know. I tend to look at things kind of bigger picture and more holistically. And again, that might be part of having gone through all these, terrible cycles of Canucks fandom. And, I look at some of the moves that he made, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, signing the likes of trading for Sutter and then re-signing him, trading for Goodbranson, then re-signing him. And then adding on top of that, those moves to add on those pieces like Roussel, Beagle. Yeah, no Canuck fan would look at that objectively and say those were, really the best moves, especially in hindsight. And then, add Louis Eriksson to that list. But I don't know. Maybe it's just having that bigger picture kind of in mind. But a lot of the constraints that they've been dealing with and they've been trying to get out from under the last 2 years have been those mistakes from past years. I look at the bigger picture. Those contracts are coming off the books, some of them this year, some of them the year after that. So I think part of me, when I looked at what Benning did and letting those players go, it's like, okay, that makes sense to me. They're trying not to throw good money after bad. And I think if we had signed Markstrom or Tanev to the deals that they got from Calgary, I really think it would have been repeating some of the sins from the past, where they felt like they had to save face, or they felt like they had to retain the guys in the room. That's not the best position of strength to negotiate in. So I looked at those moves and I thought, okay, I understand that. I get that.
Yeah, and I know that's well said. And I think, and we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this on my channel. I agree with you about the Markstrom and Tanev thing. Those are great players, very loyal warriors, to teammates, leaders, all those things. But I don't know if people would be happy if we signed Markstrom, if we could sign Markstrom to 6x6 or Tanev for 4x4.5. You look at the other two though, and there are some that would say, well, isn't top 6 scoring what we need? So why didn't we make a pitch for Tyler Toffoli? Or bottom 6, bottom pairing D-man is what we need on the right side. So why don't we make a stronger pitch for Stetcher? So I think I separated into 2 camps. What happened with Markstrom and Tanev, I'm fine with that. And then Toffoli and Stetcher, it's hard to tell how hard and how close we were to those 2 guys. Yeah.
So the way that I look at Toffoli is, there's a salary cap. Every team is dealing with the same constraints. I saw a count that there's 22 of the 31 teams that have salary cap issues. And, we're one of those 22 teams. And would it have been nice to be able to sign him, especially given how much we had given up? Of course. I mean, he rounded out our top 6, But then, if we did sign him, we would have had to have gotten rid of someone else, because we only have 2 million left, and we still need to sign Virtanen and both Virtanen and Gaudette. So yes, they could have signed him, but again, we'd be starting. If we're trying to shed salary, we'd be looking to get rid of someone out of a position of weakness rather than a position of strength. And what do you think someone's going to ask for Louis Eriksson if they take on that contract because we signed Toffoli? We're backed into a corner, and it was really going to I felt like to keep Toffoli, we would have had to mortgage a significant piece of the future, whether it's future salary cap space or an asset. I think it was Jeff Patterson who termed it looks like the Canucks are punting on this season. And he said that even before we acquired Schmidt. So it was in the context of we let 4 guys go for nothing. But I almost see it that way is, we're okay letting the season play out however it does. We have the same forward group that we had last year for the bulk of the season, because we only had Toffoli for 10 regular season games. And we're going to see where that takes us, because after the season, we're going to have more salary cap space. With by not packing the roster with these veterans, there's ample room for our younger guys, like whether it's Levy or whether it's Rafferty or Rathbone, or up front, maybe a Cole Lind or a Hoglander. There's just enough room so that they can actually show their stuff, and they're not forced so far down the lineup that they just end up on the bench. And who knows what's going to happen in the AHL, or whether or not there's even going to be an AHL season. So I do see this as a season, not that it's a throwaway, but it's a bit of a pause before we kind of launch into that next window with Hughes and PD on the long-term contracts.
Right. Well said. And then give me your quick impressions about the Holtby and the Schmidt acquisitions.
So Holtby, interesting one. I like it from a culture perspective. Everyone loves the guy. In his interviews, he's such a worldly guy. Seems like a really, really cool guy. I think he's going to be great for the room. He brings, that veteran presence. You'd argue that, okay, we did that with Beagle already, or, some of the other veterans where we brought in culture carriers. I think he's a little more than that. I mean, he has been, at the very, very top of the mountain. His best days are probably behind us, but like a lot of folks say, we have Ian Clark. So who knows what happens when Ian Clark gets to work with him. But I think the second thing, and the thing that I find most encouraging, is what the signal is about Demko. I felt strongly that as much as I love Markey, he might have 2-3 good years left in him. I know. Some goalies play well into their mid-30s, but I do think that that's more of the exception rather than the norm. So I think by having Holtby, it's a clear sign. Okay, you're just meant to kind of get us to the next years to help us pass the torch over to Demko.
I agree with you about Demko, and I've talked a lot about how I've heard firsthand that the Canucks have Luongo type hopes for Demko, and that's a high bar, because we know how much Luongo meant to our franchise. But I can see it. I can see it in his makeup, in his maturity, his mental game. But I guess now we'll start to see it a lot quicker. How about Nate Schmidt? What do you think of that?
Really, again, seems like an amazing guy. He's the smile that he has on his face, it almost reminds me of The Rock, like the way that he's like so charming and so engaging. And I don't know, you look at every different metric that you could look at from an analytics perspective, and then you combine that with the character, and just even the fact that he was, pretty much the shutdown pairing guy for Vegas for a Stanley Cup contending team. And yeah, to me, it's like, it was a no-brainer to make that move, especially at the cost of a third rounder.
Yeah. And I don't worry so much about everyone saying, you could have got more from him, or whatever, you could have, negotiated harder, but things happen so quick in free agency, and they had to move. And I credit Benning for getting in there, from all accounts, on Friday already, on the first day of free agency. The wherewithal to know what was going to happen with Pietrangelo and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The way that I look at it, okay, you have a Porsche, and a guy needs to get rid of his Porsche, right? And someone says, "I'll give you a $10,000 for it. So that would have been the, throw in a prospect and then and a first rounder in order for me to take the contract. That's like bargain. That's the pennies offer. And then Benning came in and maybe he offered 20,000 for it. And you could say that he overpaid relative to what others were offering, but you still got a push for $20,000.
Yeah. Yeah. That got me excited. I just have a Honda Civic, so I really like that story. That's a good one. Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. It's true. It's true. And I do think overall, it was definitely a win for Jim Benning. So what do you think then? Actually, quick question. Would you want to see Schmidt and Hughes play together, or do you think they got to balance it out, have Schmidt play with Edler and Hughes play with Myers, so you have a puck mover on each pair, so to speak?
Yeah, no, I say split them up, especially since Schmidt can play either side. We have a great luxury that we can play him with Hughes or we can split them up. But in my mind, that's two of your three pairings now have elite puck moving ability. Like Hughes's ability to exit and enter the zone, it's at, like, depending on what metric you look at or which analyst, it's 98th or 99th percentile. Like, he essentially is the best in the league at transitioning the puck out of our zone and into the opponent's zone. And Schmidt, he's probably in the 85, 90th percentile range. So that's such a great luxury. And you could see it, the Canucks want to play a certain way, but they could only play that way when Hughes was on the ice. And Myers does have some of that ability because he can skate like a gazelle, but he doesn't have the maneuverability, and he really only could do it if he had like 30 feet in front of him and didn't have to go around anyone. But once he got that head of steam, Myers was good, but he didn't have that elusiveness. So I'm excited about having that on two of our pairs, because it means that for 40 to 42 minutes a night, you have guys who can transport the puck.
Yeah, it's true. And especially you even think of the second power play unit, if you're putting Schmidt on there instead of Edler, that in theory should make it a lot easier to get the zone and maintain the zone as well. Very good. Okay, so yes, there's $2 million left. We know there's the arbitration for Virtanen. We know that there still could be hockey trades. There could still be a buyout post arbitration. There could be a lot of things. Do you think the Canucks should go after still a forward or a defenseman to round out their roster, or maybe both?
Well, the easy answer is all of the above. And if you listen to Benning, he's always like, yeah, we'd like to add a top 6 forward if we can. And we'd like to add a top 4D if we can. And yeah, we'd like to trade up in the draft if we can. Like, they need it all. They're not, like, unless you're at the top of the heap, you're gonna have needs. And we have, I would say I like our top 4 on D with, if we go with Hughes and Myers, and then go with Edler and Schmidt, I'd say that's a better top 4 than we iced last year with Tanev in that spot. So I wouldn't say by any means we're set there, because if we could push Myers down to the third pair, then we're getting to the place where that looks like a D that a contender would have. And then you argue the same thing about our top 6. Like, when Toffoli was in there, it just rounds out the lines and pushes guys further down the lineup in places where they don't have to, maybe overextend themselves. Practical reality is there's limited cap space. So, and again, unless we're willing to pay with a portion of the future, I don't see a way that we can get out from under the cap space. My preference is to go in with what we have. And let's see what we got with some of these younger guys. And we might find that, out of the, 2 or 3 forwards and 2 or 3 D, if just one of them, if we just strike gold on one of them, it's a game changer, I feel. And I think we would have, been thankful that we didn't trade away assets or chase away some incremental gain just for this season.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting with the Jordy Ben thing. If he still has game in him, he can play left or right side. So then really you could see between the 4, Juolevi, Rathbone, Rafferty, and Chatfield, if any of those 4,
any of them have a chance.
Yeah, you put Ben on the other side, and then maybe you could have, your 6 that you can at least feel semi-comfortable with. But yeah, you're right. It'll be great if one of these guys, one of the young guys, kind of stepped up. And that's the whole point, right? They're on those cheaper contracts, and at the end of next season, when we have to sign the 2 big ones, it's gonna be very important to have a couple guys like that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And I almost think it's, for a lot of these guys, it's like crap or get off the pot. It's like for Chatfield and even Ulevy to a degree. We need to see what we got, and we're not going to find out anything more by playing them in the American League. And so I don't necessarily ascribe to the school of thinking that if you don't make it by the time you're 21 or you're 22, that you're a write-off. I know some analytics people feel that the peak is earlier than it is, but if you step outside the analytics a little bit, I know that for defensemen, often it takes into the mid 20s or late 20s for them to really figure things out. But at the same time, I think we need to see what those guys have at the NHL level. And I don't think anyone would argue that had we brought Stetcher back from game one of the 2020-2021 season, we'd have a better D. But I think what it represents by letting him go, though, is an opportunity to let's bring in these guys that they might have a lower floor, but I feel that they have higher ceilings. Especially a guy like Ulevy, who's drafted, is it 5th or 6th overall?
Yeah, he's fifth overall pick. You got it. Yeah. Okay, so to lead into my conversation about Canucks Twitter, it's interesting because on Twitter, you oftentimes have Canucks fans arguing more about management and coaching than they do about the players themselves. And and of course, I'm talking about Jim Benning, the famous Bitter Bros versus the Benning Bros. I'm not going to ask you which one you are. I think I know. But what's your overall confidence in Canucks management right now?
It's improving. So if I look at the guy I was 5 years ago and how good I was at my job, I'm a different guy now. I've learned along the way. I've made mistakes. So I feel though, like in the hockey world, and maybe it's because general managers only tend to last 3 or 4 years, and either you kind of hit it out of the park and or you're gone and they replace you with someone else. With Benning, we have this pretty unprecedented situation, especially for a market like Vancouver, where we hired a guy. He did a terrible job, and then we renewed his contract. And then, he's starting to. I do feel like he's starting to get better, and I see the logic in what he's doing. So, if I were to grade the first 3 or 4 years of his tenure, probably C-, maybe a C. But I look at what he's done through the draft and even the more recent trades and turning Goodbranson into Pearson, and it's hit and miss because obviously the Toffoli thing didn't work out the way we wanted it to. But
Miller was good.
Miller was great. Again, happy with the Schmidt acquisition cost. I think that's a solid B+ job, and I think the thing that I don't say frustrates me, but the reaction on what would have been the equivalent of July 1st, like the first day of free agency this year, like people were going ballistic, like losing their minds over what was happening. And that was why I started to get a little bit more vocal on Twitter because we were litigating sins from 3 years ago or 4 years ago. It's like, the cap problems and Roussel and Beagle, et cetera, and Eriksson. It's like, yes, we've been talking about that for 5 years. Yes, it's a problem. I don't disagree with that. But if you think about the concept of sunk costs and whatever we did in the past is in the past, what's the best decision today for the future? I can't really criticize anything that he's done over the last couple of months.
Yeah. No, you're right. October 9 became this year's July 1st already. So that's a wonderful segue into something that you and I have been talking about a lot, obviously off camera, just as brothers, when we text each other and we call each other, and you're asking me, hey, who's this guy on Twitter? Or what's this person like? And which is good. So you have a Canucks Twitter account that you've had for many years, but you've just becoming more active, and I love it. I think I truly, and I've said this off air, I said that you're very bright, you're very articulate, you understand the game, and you can communicate well without getting into fights every second tweet, which we know some people do. So on Twitter, you're at Canuck _J J A Y.
That's right.
It's at Canuck line Jay.
That's right. Yeah, okay, the single underscore was taken by someone else. So I had to use the double.
Yeah, what a jerk! Who would take that?
That guy hasn't tweeted in a long time. I should call the guy up and say, hey, dude.
Does he know you're my brother? We got to get them all like that. Okay, we got Canuck _ Sean, Canuck. Actually, no, I don't have an underscore. It doesn't matter. But people can find you now at Canuck _Jay. Now, when someone goes to your Twitter account, Jay, what are they going to find? What's the tone of your accounts?
Yeah. So, I mean, you asked the question earlier. Well, you didn't ask the question. You mentioned Benning bro or bitter bro. I don't think I'm either. I'm not like card carrying member of the Jim Benning fan club. I've been very critical of him over the years, but I also think I can be reasonable enough to recognize when he's doing a decent job. So I don't put myself either in the category of, this guy sucks and we got to get rid of him and we got to fire Benning. So, I consider myself someone who's analytical and has a critical eye, but at the same time has the passion of a true fan who's been a lifetime fan.
Mm-hmm. Now, you know that your older brother is the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club. Good looks obviously run in the family, but when it comes to positivity, for me, it's not a shtick. It's how I feel. It's how I live my life. Would you say that you're a positive Canucks fan?
If I had to err on either side, yes, absolutely positive. And by the way, folks out there listening to this, because I am the guy who grew up with Clay, and obviously I've known him my whole life. And what you see is what you get. He is as nice a guy in real life as he quote unquote portrays himself to be on the camera. So yeah, for people who ever think that might be a question, it's not a question at all. Canuck Clay is as good a guy, as nice a guy, as positive guy as he comes across on screen.
Well, thank you for that. So do you ever get challenged by the people who maybe they don't have to be as positive as say you or me, but they're almost irrational in how they try and make a point of taking down the positive takes. We're not going to name names, obviously. We can do that off the air, but we've talked about this before. Does that frustrate you, or does that come with the territory of a passionate fan base?
So it is part and parcel with living in, the social media age that we live in, where everyone has a voice. And I think that it's wonderful that we have this medium where we can connect with fans that have all these different viewpoints, because, there's pros and cons. Like I drew the picture of when we were growing up and all we had was, listening to the radio and the 10 people that live around us or our classmates at school to talk about the Canucks with. So I love the fact that we have this medium to express our views. I do think though that because I've been following it over the years, whether it was the mainstream media or the emergence of the bloggers, some very prominent bloggers who got jobs in organizations. I think that's absolutely amazing, right? Like it really, I think, legitimized that profession and that medium. But I think what it's also done, though, is I think it's probably created this gray area where there are a lot of personalities and bloggers, and it kind of blurs the line between media and fan. And I don't think some of the average people who follow these accounts or listen to these people kind of make that distinction. So I think things can often be taken out of context, or people almost put too much weight on what some of these people say because they feel like they're talking to someone who's really an insider, but a lot of cases just a guy like me and you who just have strong opinions about the team.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And that's why, and I think on a day like October 9th, you can really see where the cream of the crop kind of rises, right? Where you really want to follow the Dragers and the McKenzies and locally the Dollywalls and the Pattersons and the Drances, because those are the guys that are breaking stories, and the rest of us, and it's nothing bad. That's the whole point, is we kind of follow along, so to speak, and then form our opinions from it.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I'll be honest, on October 9th, I myself kind of reached a boiling point. It's okay, I've been not saying anything for a very long time, just the odd tweet, or I don't even know. So I'm not a Twitter expert, but I would reply to someone else's tweet and, or I might retweet something, but that was about it. And I would never send out my own tweets. But then I think it was just seeing that a lot of that negativity kind of converge on that one day. And I just felt like maybe it's just for my own mental health. I felt like I need, rather than kind of stepping away from it, I felt, okay, maybe I want to engage in this a little bit more now.
Yeah, and Twitter's challenging, and like any type of social media, any type of communication, you have the ability to engage as much as you want to or not. You could type your 280 characters, press send,
Yeah.
and walk away, and not even worry about it. So I guess to each his own.
Mhm.
As you know, for me, and I try and engage. I try not to take myself too seriously, but I also hopefully able to defend my points, but
Yeah.
also respect that not everyone has to agree with me, and a lot of people don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, maybe because we're cut from the same cloth, I know where to draw the line, because I think
Yes.
when the next comment is going to be the one that's going to set the other guy off, and like, okay, that's enough. Like I think it's also maybe it's because we're in our 40s now, mid 40s, and have a little bit. I don't want to say
You
like
can say it. We're mature. We're wise.
mature,
You can say it.
getting old. But I also, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Like when I go play sports now, like and you know this as well as I do. Like when we were growing up, we were hyper competitive around sports, and we hated losing, and
Yeah.
intramurals and UBC, or like playing in like leagues in our 20s. But
Or
now
us
it's like,
shoving each other under our basketball hoop at home.
yeah, but now it's like I don't need to be a hero. Like I
Yeah.
don't. I have a job I need to go to, and life is like so much more than playing sports or Canucks. But it doesn't mean that we put our passion aside, or that we don't engage, or we don't have fun with it. But
Yeah.
I think it also means that, like, let's have some balance, and
Exactly.
yeah.
That's why my roller hockey team, the other guys who think they can still make the NHL, they kind of leave me alone because they know that I just sit down. I'm getting my exercise one time a week kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and and same thing. Like we're not going to judge those people, because like they have a passion about it, and it brings them joy to be that engaged in their sport, or in the Canucks, on Twitter. And far be it from me to say that which way is right or which way is wrong. But for me, I just I don't think I will go down those paths of picking Twitter wars. But ask me that question again once I've been in it for a few months.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's wrap up by talking about another thing that gives us both joy, and that's music. And that's in particular for this vlog, Canucks music. So for those of you out there that don't know Jason, my brother Jason, probably a better singer than me. He's not saying much, but he's a better singer than me. We both love playing the piano. Jason is a wonderful producer. So he's done a lot of our instrumental tracks where we need mixing and harmonies and layers. So he's done our 53 Horvat Magic. He's done a couple of our Christmas songs. He's done our Thank You Sadine's music. The Brady Bunch was one that Jason did as well. So maybe just talk just for a couple minutes about Canucks music in particular, what it's like, especially. I try to explain to people the magic it is when Marie Huey sings like some of our lyrics for the first. Oh, and Jason helps me with a lot of my lyrics as well. But when Marie sings lyrics for the first time, and it's just that moment where we go, "Wow, this is actually going to sound pretty cool." It sounds kind of goofy. Her singing these goofy, cheesy lyrics, but she makes anything sound good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is the magic, when someone that talented is singing your words. So yeah, it is. It is again a great honor to be able to participate in those projects. Yeah, and that's why I love working with you, is because you're very, very creative. And I think my role as a producer, and this is what I see myself as, whether I'm working with you or whether I'm working with one of the other artists that I work with. It's my job really to bring to life what's on that page, or what's in that singer's heart, or the message that they want to they want to get out to the world. So I see my role as a producer is to do all the technical work, and so that there's something that someone can listen to without getting distracted. So is that thing needlessly pitchy, or does that instrument kind of sound out? I'm trying to get rid of those barriers so that you guys can convey your message to your audience.
Oh, that's awesome. No, we've had so many funny memories. Marie and Ariel recording the Christmas rap song at your place, and me trying to nail my rap lines for 53 Horvat Magic. Thank God I wasn't paying you by the hour. I'll say that. But what I really appreciate is how humble you are, Jay. Just the way, like, simple thing is, you're like, no, I don't need to appear in the video. You don't have to list my name. You don't have to even tag me. You just help me to help us out. So that means a lot to us for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, the projects are a lot of fun, and I think some of them turn out better than others, but or some of them, well, I should say at least some of them get better reactions than others. I always find it funny when I see the YouTube comments, or the
Yeah,
or the
well, welcome
Facebook
to my
comments.
life. It's funny. It's always like 95% of the time when we release a song that we're excited about, the Canucks play really poorly right after. And I think that really
Yeah,
actually colors the way people react to some of our
no,
music, but that's
absolutely.
okay. We're
Yeah.
big boys. We can handle it. Okay, let's end off on this. I call it the 5-hole. 5 questions. You can be as broad and general as you want or as detailed as you want. A couple of them Canucks related, a couple of them just life related. Is that okay?
Mhm. Sure, let's do
All
it.
right. The sport that you excel the most playing in is?
I'd say ultimate.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that's unexpected because you and I have never played. Well, I guess we did play that one time this summer,
Yeah, that
but
was when I was passed out leaning against the goalpost.
yeah, I think I'd say I'm an okay basketball player. I've coached my kids in basketball. I love playing basketball, but I also know that I'm not the best out there. And with hockey, again, love playing street hockey, but can't skate with a lick. So yeah, ultimate is the one where when I'm out there, I feel dangerous.
Awesome. Would you say that that's also the sport you enjoy playing the most?
Nah, football for sure. Touch football.
Okay,
Because I think with
cool.
touch football, you need 10 guys who know what they're doing. So like that's kind of the magic of it when you get 10 guys who love the game and you're all working together and everyone takes the game seriously.
Yeah, I love playing touch football when you have 4 guys who know and 1 guy who you have to explain every single pattern to. So every every
Yeah,
huddle
usually
takes like 4.
as a guy who makes the plays, I always stick that guy as wide receiver on the far end of the field so he can do whatever the heck he wants.
Hey, now I know why you put me out there. Okay, number 2. You're starting a team from scratch. Elias Pettersson or Quinn Hughes?
Good question. I'd say Quinn Hughes. Yeah, they're both unicorns in what they do, and I believe they're both going to be top 5 at their positions if they aren't kind of knocking on that door already. But Quinn Hughes has the opportunity to be the best at his position, and is PD going to get to the McDavid level or the Sidney Crosby level? Maybe, maybe not. Do we need him to? Probably not. Especially since we have Quinn Hughes, and I do think that they both could be the best of their positions. But Hughes, he does things that are so unique and impact every single inch of the ice.
Good answer. This next one, I always have to qualify it and explain to people why I'm asking. But for you, you're my brother, so you obviously know why, because we're half of both. What do you like more, Japanese food or Chinese food?
I'd have to say Japanese. And actually, yeah, during the quarantine, one of the skills that I picked up is making the oshi aburi. So like the pressed sushi that's seared. So yeah, I love Japanese food. I'm very much like you growing up, we were exposed to both, but it always felt like a treat whenever we'd have Japanese.
Yep, absolutely. Number 4, imagine they're paying for dinner, so it's on their tab. Are you going out for dinner with Travis Green, Jim Benning, or Francesco Aquilini?
I'd say Travis Green. Yeah, with Benning, I don't know. I feel like I'd talk too fast for him. And I wouldn't be patient enough to hear his answers. He'd be like, yeah, well. And with Francesco Aquilini, I've never met the guy, and he keeps a pretty low public profile, so I don't know if he's a cool dude or not. But with Travis Green, he just seems like real salt of the earth, down to earth, and he knows our cousin Dusty, so I'd be very curious to hear stories about hockey from that era as well, and he'd probably have a unique lens on that.
Yes, no, that's true. I've talked to Travis a couple times about Dusty. He always asks how he's doing and stuff. So who knows? Maybe Dusty ends up in the Canucks organization down the road.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5. What's one thing that people either don't know about you or you want them to know about you? And I'll give you a couple seconds to think about this one because
sure.
It's going deeper than the other 4.
Yeah. I think, and people who know you wouldn't find this to be a surprise, but I have a deep faith background that I think really kind of underpins my worldview and the choices that I make in life. And so yeah, I'd say God being the number one priority in my life. That'd be one thing that I don't always necessarily put out there, especially on Twitter. I don't even know if I have a tweet that addresses that part of my life. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jay, this is great. This was a fast 45 minutes. So thank you. Thank you. Again, if you want to follow my brother and see all of his, I'm not going to say controversial, but definitely insightful and direct and positive yet fair tweets, he's at He's at Canuck __ JJAY. And anything else you want to say before I do my wrap up here to the hundreds of people that are going to see this on my YouTube?
The hundreds of people. Well, just thank you if you made it this far, 45 minutes into a podcast by a guy and his brother, especially since, you have ones with Drager and Drance and Patterson. And now
you're not even the first emo I've had on here.
No.
Well, no,
thanks, this is the start of something big.
No, that's awesome. Well, Jay, thank you for joining me and for sharing your the awesome stories. No, it's wonderful, and I can't wait for our next family dinner.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for having me.
Anytime. Okay, Canucks fans, don't forget, later on tonight, it is my weekly YouTube live stream. Move that from Sunday nights to Monday nights because I bowl on Sunday nights now. So join me tonight at 10 p.m. We can talk about this chat I just had. We can talk about the Canucks free agency, what they need to do going forward. Is there going to be a season next year? A lot of things we can chat about, but make sure you join me tonight, 10 p.m. right here on YouTube. Until then, subscribe if you like to, like this video if you like to. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves and of each other. God bless. And Jay, help me out. Go Canucks.
Canucks go.
Go. Oh, that's okay.